Welcome to the weekend edition of Second City Sports Zoom Style.
Zoom Style.
Along with Lakeena McGee, which is she. I am Sydney Brown, which is me. You can follow yours truly on the Twitter and the IG at SidKid80. Once again, at SidKid80. That's SIDKID80. That's SIDKID80.
You can follow me at Keita McGee on the Twitter and at Keita_McGee on the IG.
You go to our website, weareregalradio.com. You can follow this podcast, Second City Sports, along with the other podcast program for War Media by simply going to War on Anchor, which kicks you over to Spotify, iTunes, SoundCloud, Stitcher, Google Play, and the iHeartRadio app. We are available on all podcast platforms. Just type in that search engine box, War on Anchor. That's WARR on Anchor. And we're also on YouTube at War Media. Once again, at WARR Media on YouTube. You can not only listen to us, but watch us do our thing live. As we take our bow and give our kisses to you lovely folks out there, thank you in advance for your support.
Like, share, subscribe, and tell your friends.
And we're unapologetically fun. And if you're watching on YouTube right now, our guest for this segment, we're going to bring him on, known him for the last few years. Actually did a studio show. Illinois Media Score, doing one of my other shows. He is Mr. Zack Pearson. He's from the Bear Report. You can catch his articles at thebearreport.com. Where can they follow you on social media, Zack?
Yeah, you can follow me on Twitter. It's just Zack, ZACK _Pearson. And then the Bear Report on Twitter is just Bear Report.
Okay. Lakeena, 1, 2, 3. Musa.
That's what. Like I said, I'm laughing at this point. So,
our top story for this show is that the Chicago Bears signed quarterback Andy Dalton earlier this week in free agency. He'll earn up to $13 million. He signed 1 year for $10 million. He can earn up to $13 million if he meets certain incentives. Of course, this comes off the heels of the Bears' attempt to get Russell Wilson proved to be for naught. Of course, they're not into the Deshaun Watson sweepstakes. I know he has other issues. We'll get to that later. But, Zack, we talked about this a little bit before we brought you on today. If you're listening to local media and national media podcasts, reading a whole bunch of articles, people are upset to the highest degree. You have people like Lakeena, no offense, laughing at this, and I don't blame her for that. We all know that the Bears as an organization have been a joke for a while. But before we really break this down, I want to get your initial thoughts of the Bears signing quarterback Andy Dalton. Is this a good move, or is this just another blunder in the Bears front office just covering up for the fact they couldn't go after the top guy?
I mean, if you look at Twitter and pay attention to what the fans are saying, it's an awful move and the world is ending. And I totally get their frustrations. I'm not a fan of the move, but I would say just give it some time. I don't think this is the last quarterback they're going to acquire this offseason. I do think they would still be in play for Russell Wilson if Seattle does decide to trade him, and I do think they're going to draft a rookie quarterback if they can't get Wilson. So I think Dalton's just a placeholder to kind of make the offense a little more simpler. He's got, familiarity with Bill Lazor. They're trying to add Kenny Galladay. They're trying to get another receiver in. But yeah, I mean, it's obviously not what Bears fans expected. I think, the 3 to 4 weeks of Russell Wilson hype kind of made Bears fans sour when they saw Andy Dalton.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, man, you have the shiny car, the Lamborghini, and Russell Wilson, and then you settle, maybe for like a Mazda or something like that, and Andy Dalton. So it's, it's not a terrible, terrible move, I would say, but it's not just the move that everyone expected, and I don't think it really makes the Bears a contender at all.
Now let's talk about the defense for a second. Here's Zack, but a couple of days ago, Kyle Fuller was released, and now it looks like maybe Akeem Hicks might be getting traded because apparently they've granted his permission to seek a trade. So what's going on here with this? What's going on here with this Bears defense? It's going to look completely different next year. And what do you think? Because this is just, like I said, this is my own amusement here. I'm just looking at the side and just laughing in amusement because do they even know what they're trying to do?
Yeah, I think looking at Kyle Fuller when he was owed $21 million this year, that wasn't going to happen. So the Bears kind of had a couple choices. They asked him to take a pay cut, and he said no, and I don't think he should have taken a pay cut either. I think he's played to a level where he has earned his money. The other option was to trade him, that's still kind of in play, depending if they could find a team. Otherwise, just going to outright release him today. And then you look at Akeem Hicks, and it's like kind of the same situation. You know, he was kind of one of those pieces in a trade, a potential trade for Russell Wilson or Deshaun Watson. And kind of what I'd say to this is, I don't think that a lot of people realize, or kind of when there was people on Twitter and other Bears writers, Jonathan Wood from the Bears blog is a good guy who back in, I believe it was October, he's been pushing on Twitter. The Bears are not going to be able to keep all these defensive players. I think people kind of like, you know, blew past that and like, that's not really that true. And then on the Bear Report, Andrew Freeman in his mock-off season pretty much wrote the same thing. Like, they're not going to be able to keep Kyle Fuller and Akeem Hicks due to cap situations. So I think it kind of came as a shock because people might not have been paying much attention, or, you know, not on purpose, but didn't take that serious enough. It's just, the reality is they've signed guys like Robert Quinn for way too much money. They signed guys like Jimmy Graham for way too much money. They've given extensions for way too much money. And eventually you're going to have to let go of players because the money is not there. The pandemic obviously hurt them. You know, it's not really an excuse, but it is something that was in play because the salary cap did not rise for the first time in, you know, a long time. So they were kind of screwed on that end. But, I mean, as far as a plan, I really don't know. I think the plan right now is we're going to free up cap space. We're going to try taking a run at someone like Kenny Galladay, look at cheaper options at cornerback, look at cheaper options on the defensive line, and hopefully just recoup cap space and kind of move forward with that and see if we can kind of patchwork this defense and offense together. And, you know, the most important thing is I don't think now – going in the offseason, I thought this is a must-win year for Ryan Pace and Matt Nagy. I don't know now because these moves kind of tell me that they may have more job security than we think that they do.
That's bad news if that's the case, but
yeah,
we'll see what happens on that front. Zach, let's go back to Andy Dalton for a moment. Of course, he's reunited with Bill Lazor, who's the current offensive coordinator for the Bears. Of course, we all know the success that the Bears had during the last month of the season last year. Do you trust Matt Nagy? I know he's the head coach; he has to sign off on everything, but do you trust Matt Nagy to let Bill Lazor do his job, or do you think he's going to meddle his hands in everything and mess things up like he did toward the end of last season?
Yeah, there were definitely times where Matt Nagy had, you know, a little more of the play calling duties than what, you know, we expected when Bill Lazor took over. There were some obvious plays you could tell that's a Matt Nagy play. So I don't think it's going to be like that. I think there'll be a couple plays where Matt Nagy will say, hey, we want to run these at any point in the game. Just put them in the playbook and put them in your play sheet, and we'll call them. Listening to Andy Dalton yesterday, he talked a lot about Bill Lazor and what he envisions his offense being, and he's got the connection to Bill Lazor. So listening to him talk about, you know, how he's doing film and, you know, kind of doing research on the guys so far on the roster, how the Bears offense looked last year, what they fixed, things like that. And then also bringing up Bill Lazor. I do think it's going to be Bill Lazor calling the plays more often than not, because I do think, you know, that was part of it. Andy Dalton says it was being able to have a starting job here in Chicago was a big key. I think right behind that was having familiarity with Bill Lazor and Bill Lazor being the play caller. I wouldn't be shocked if that was one of the big selling points for him. So I would expect Bill Lazor to, you know, have a role like he did last year, but a little more because, I mean, he showed us, hey, he can run an offense. I mean, they were playing Jacksonville and Houston and Minnesota towards the end of the year, but it wasn't like they were, you know, really, really bad for most of the time that he was the offensive coordinator. They still showed some signs of kind of breaking out. So I will say Bill Lazor is probably going to have, you know, the play calling duties going into this season.
Now, going back to that, you know, Dalton said in the presser that he was basically promised a starting job, but do you see them perhaps maybe try to package something together and perhaps maybe train up in the draft to probably get maybe a Trey Lance or a Kyle Trask or somebody of that ilk?
Yeah, you know, they also told Mike Glennon he was going to be the starter when they signed him in 2017, and then a couple months later they drafted Mitch Trubisky. So I don't, you know, they could tell Glennon, hey, you're the starter week one, but that's the starter week one. That shouldn't, you know, hamper them from drafting a quarterback or trading for a quarterback. If Russell Wilson becomes available again, I think the Bears will take another shot at him. As far as the quarterbacks that draft, you know, I think you could get Kyle Trask maybe in the second round, third round. He might actually be, if you want to go defensive back, offensive tackle, another skill position, you want to wait for a quarterback, I'd probably wait for Kyle Trask. if you want to make, take to swing for the fences in terms of the draft, I would try to trade up and get Trey Lance. I've seen some mocks have Justin Fields falling outside of 10. Justin Fields falls outside of 10. I think that's a no-brainer to trade up to number 10. But they're not going to get Trevor Lawrence. They're probably not going to get Zach Wilson. Mac Jones is not a guy I would trade up for. I don't think he's a terrible quarterback. He's not a guy I would trade up for. But in reality, you look at the top 10, there are, six, 7 teams, depending how you look at it, that could take a quarterback. The Bears are just in a spot where who wants to move back to 20? I mean, which one of those teams is going to say, okay, yeah, we'll take number 20 and hope that one of these quarterback falls? I don't see it kind of happening. So they're going to have to put together a big package, but I don't think it should limit them. The Andy Dalton signing shouldn't limit them. I think they could still make a move.
Zack Pearson of the Bear Report is joining us here on the weekend edition of Second City Sports, along with Lakeena McGee, which is she. I am Sidney Brown, which is me. Zach, let's go to the wide receiver Allen Robinson. He signs the one-year franchise tag for $18 million, I believe. Of course, there's news coming out of Hallis Hall that they're talking to free agent wide receiver Kenny Galladay, Chicago kid, a former Detroit Lion. I want to first focus in on Robinson. Do you think the Bears will keep him for 1 year, or do you think that they'll actually come to some conclusion in terms of a long contract extension?
I think they'll try. I think they'll try to keep him for the long term. I can't imagine, that signing like Andy Dalton really made Allen Robinson, be like, oh yeah, I'm definitely gonna stay here for the long term and maybe take a discount. I don't think there's gonna be any discount. I think he's gonna, if he doesn't get the money he wants, he's gonna be out of here after a year. And I think I found it kind of interesting he signed it, on Thursday after all this news happened, because this wide receiver market, outside of a couple of guys, it's been kind of bad. I mean, you look, Kenny Galladay's still unsigned. There's reports he wants $18 million a year. It's just, I think Robinson kind of realized, I think I need to sign this, guarantee my money, lock it in. We'll see what happens. If I had a bet right now, I would say he's probably gone after this year. That could change, though. I mean, they could trade up in the draft and get a quarterback. Anything could happen during the regular season. Right now, here in March, I would say they're going to try for a long-term deal, but I wouldn't kind of bet on him being here for the long term.
And they could probably still trade him too. I mean, that's probably why why he signed the tenure, because they can't trade him unless he had signed it. So that's just my that's just my synopsis here, Zach. But about this whole thing with the with the offense here. They picked up a couple of guys, with the O-line. Do you think that they try to go O-line if they decide not to trade, say stand pat? Is that the direction they decide to go in the draft?
Yeah, I think it's a very strong offensive line class, especially at tackle. And, you have Jermaine Irfetti, but the long term, that's not going to be your solution out there at right tackle. So I think if they don't go quarterback, I would say the two positions would probably be defensive back and offensive tackle. I mean, you could probably address those two in the first 2 rounds in either order. Both those positions are deep. I mean, you could be looking at, probably Greg Newsome from Northwestern at defensive back, and then fall back and get a tackle too, or kind of get a tackle and look for someone else in the second round at defensive back. I would say tackle's definitely a priority, though, because you got to get your anchor on the offensive line. You got to solidify that offensive line. And if you're kind of rebuilding on the fly, getting a young offensive tackle that's very good, very talented as your anchor is a good start on that offensive line.
Sticking with that offense, Zach, Robert Massey, who has been already released. I know Jimmy Graham and possibly Charles Lund Jr. still may be cap casualties. I know the Bears currently, as of this broadcast, are $14 million under the salary cap. Do you think one or both of those guys get cut, or do you see a name that we're not talking about that could possibly get cut?
Yeah, in terms of surprises, I don't think – I mean, Jimmy Graham wouldn't really be a surprise to me. I think he'd probably be the next guy to be cut if they have to make a move or at least restructure the contract. I think they're going to keep Leno. I just think, you look at the tackles in the NFL and, it's fair to criticize Leno because of the penalties and sometimes he looks lost out there. But you look at the tackles out there that are available, there's not many better than him. And then you look at the tackles that are getting paid high. I mean, a lot of these tackles are getting big money. And to find someone that can actually play 16 games a year and give you that. It's very tough without breaking the bank. So I would say Leno's probably safe. I'd be shocked if they cut him. I wouldn't be as shocked by Graham. I don't think there's any other player in terms of cutting to kind of free up cap space. I do think Anthony Miller's a guy to keep an eye on in terms of trade value, because there's always a report that they're shopping him. He could be packaged with another player or something like that, maybe a draft day trade. In terms of cutting, I wouldn't say offense, not much. Because, look at the receivers. Darnell Mooney's under contract. Riley Ridley's not making that much. Javon Wims not making that much. They're not going to save you a lot of money there.
Now, Zach, I've been racking my brain around some of these NFL moves. Well, let's talk about the whole scope of the free agency so far. You said yourself about the wide receivers. It just came across the wire that Juju Smith is actually going back to the Steelers on a one-year deal. So that's sort of kind of a shocking there for some of us. But has there been like any type of move so far that kind of made you want to scratch your head, or has there been a move that's sort of like, huh, really? And then any surprising moves you think?
Oh, man, surprising. I'm trying to think off the top of my head. Nothing crazy. I think the Raiders kind of letting go pretty much of their whole offensive line is kind of odd to me. Also, Kenyon Drake was a little bit interesting because I thought, Josh Jacobs was a good running back number one for them, and he kind of faltered late in the year last year. Yeah. But Kenyon Drake going there, now they're going to be splitting carries. Yeah, I would say, man, the Raiders, the Patriots spending money, that's kind of surprising too. I think they're kind of going all in. And then the Colts kind of having all the money to spend and not really spending much of it outside of, trading for Carson Wentz. So, no, it's just a weird year. It's with COVID and all that going on, a lot of teams are looking at these one-year deals where they can, get a player to prove it and then sign them back next year. Or these deals are kind of a lot of voidable years. Like Taysom Hill, everyone looked at the big money there. I'd be shocked if he saw all that money. All the years are voidable. So it's just kind of a way for them to kind of get under the salary cap and kind of work with that. Nothing crazy as of yet. I don't know. There's so many talented players still left. And I think this is going to drag on usually, longer than it usually does.
Last moment or two with Zack Pearson of the Bear Report right here on the weekend edition of Second City Sports, along with Lakeena McGee. I am Sydney Brown. Zach, going back to the subject of Kyle Fuller, of course, I'm afraid that he's going to go to the Packers because, remember, the Packers signed up to that offer sheet a couple of years ago and the Bears matched it. I like Jalen Johnson. I know he missed the last month of the year, including that playoff game against the Saints due to injury. But where do the Bears go from here as far as finding Kyle Fuller's replacement? It's going to be tough. As far as I know, there's nothing out there in the free agent market. It looks like you have to go search for it in the draft. And the Bears, unless you know something I don't know, they don't have that many picks.
Yeah. It's, you're right. There's really, on free agency, there's a bunch of veterans out there you'd probably bring in on a one-year deal. I really think they're going to keep it in-house and give Duke Shelley, Kendall Vilder, and Artie Burns, a chance to kind of compete. They also have a couple interesting guys. Crawford's still on the roster, then Tease Tabor from Detroit, who they brought on last year towards the end of the year. I don't feel comfortable with any of them. Replacing Kyle Fuller is very hard. I mean, that's going to be very, very tough. He's not only a guy on the field, I'll tell you this, he's one of the most respected guys in that locker room on the defense. Everyone loves him on the defense. I've never heard anyone say a bad word about him in that locker room. So kind of replacing that's going to be tough too. I would say their best bet is keeping it in-house and looking at the draft. I think if you can get a guy in the draft, a young player, maybe around 1 or 2, you can kind of start building around him and Jalen Johnson, but it's not going to be easy to replace a guy, like Kyle Fuller on the field and off the field in terms of leadership in that locker room.
Do you know what direction the Bears are trying to go here, Zach? I mean, are they going to try to wipe the slate clean and start over? Are they trying to win now? Or, Pace and Nagy, are they going to be staying longer than the one-year term? I mean, we're hearing all different types of things. So what do you think is happening?
I don't think it's a full rebuild. I also don't think that they're not trying to rebuild on the fly. I think that's kind of the path they're going, like, we have to get rid of some of these guys to stay under the cap and be able to have some flexibility in the future. But they don't want to tear it all down because, they still do need a win. And there might be some behind the scenes stuff we don't know. We don't know the contract length for Ryan Pace still. They will not answer that for whatever reason. They just always pass on that question. It makes
Our
no
Zoom's
sense.
messed up. Sorry. What was that?
Yeah, right.
I'm not George McCaskey.
Yeah, it's so odd to just listen to them kind of dance around that question. But I think they're trying to, in a way, I hate using rebuild because I don't think it's rebuild, but kind of rebuild on the fly. Try to do patchwork this together. Go after a wide receiver, maybe go after and find some cheap veterans on defense, and then hopefully draft well. In my eyes, I hate saying this. Is nothing against Mitchell Trubisky. It's not his fault he was selected that high. It's not his fault he was in Patrick Mahomes and Sean Watson's draft class. I think this all comes back to the quarterback position. Nothing matters unless you get the quarterback right, and they have not been able to get the quarterback right. And now they're trying to go down a different path with this. And I don't know. In terms of their plan, I'm shocked at what they're doing, but we just have to I know it's hard. We just kind of have to trust them in their method of madness, even though I don't think it's going to work out for them in the long run.
Last question for me, Zach. Of course, Mario Edwards, let's focusing on the defense. Mario Edwards re-signed with Chicago to a 3-year deal, but Roy Robinson Harris, who showed some promise while he was here, signs as a free agent with the Jacksonville Jaguars. How huge is this for Chicago?
Yeah, so, I like Roy Robinson Harris, great player, great guy. The Bears could not have given him that money. That was a lot of money to give him. And, it worked out well because he signed that big deal and the Bears were set to get a 5th-round comp pick. And then they sign Andy Dalton, that comp pick is gone, so it cancels out. So now they lose Roy Robertson Harris, they lose a comp pick. They bring back Mario Edwards. I thought that was a smart move. I really wanted to see them bring back Brent Urban. He went to Dallas. And now, I think it's going to be a different defensive line. They got Bilal Nichols. You got to hope Bilal Nichols takes that next step. He was really good last season after a poor sophomore season. He was really dang good, and I think he's going to be a guy that, they're looking at, okay, maybe we can afford to lose Akeem Hicks and Roy Robertson Harris if a guy like Bilal Nichols develops. And, we should criticize the Bears for a lot of stuff. Defensive line, I haven't had a problem with anything they've done. They've actually developed players on the defensive line. So I think that's one of the areas we can trust them in. I would look at maybe defensive line on day 2 or day 3 of the draft, see if they can find a couple of guys, of value. But, in terms of Roy Robertson Harris, it wasn't realistic. They weren't going to give him that money that Jacksonville did. And, as a player, you got to take that money. So.
And Harris's son, Jax, actually stole the show at the presser.
Oh, God.
He's so cute. Adorable.
So cute.
Adorable. Last question for me, Zach. You actually just, sort of, I think you guys covered with Sid's last question. Do you see the Bears making any more, significant moves or cuts?
Yeah, if there's a cut, I think it's going to be Akeem Hicks or a trade, or they could trade Akeem Hicks. As far as big moves and additions, I would look. Kenny Galladay wants $18 million. The Bears reportedly offered him anywhere from $11 to $13 million. I would say right now, I don't think he'd come to Chicago unless he'd take that offer. It's not looking good. I would say in terms of big moves out there, just staying in the Russell Wilson race. I think come draft time, the Seahawks might have to get desperate. Things could get ugly out there. And if that happens, I think that works into the Bears' favor. I don't know if it's going to happen, but, I would say Russell Wilson would be the biggest move they can make right now. Outside of that, it'd be a lot of veteran signings. And the cuts, I think they actually finally got, where they want to be with these cuts. I do think, Akeem Hicks could be traded. It certainly sounds like, they're giving him permission to seek a trade. So other than that, there's nothing really huge. I think this is going to be kind of an offseason. We're going to see a couple moves here and there every week or so, and then get ready for the draft.
All right, that was Zack Pearson of the Bear Report. You can follow him on social media on the Twitter at Zack Pearson. Once again, at Zack Pearson. You can follow the Bear Report on Twitter as well at Bear Report. Once again, at Bear Report. Zach, thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule to join us. You do a great job. Yeah, keep up the great work. Let's have you back on the game real soon. Yeah, anytime you guys want, let me know. I'll make more time for you guys next time.
Oh, no, it's fine. This was great. Thank you, Zach.
I appreciate it. Thank you, guys.
All right, thanks, Zach. All right,
Thank you.
Take care. Once again, that was Zack Pearson of the Bear Report. Support his work. I've been knowing him for the last few years, working with the Dean Davis Show. Of course, I had a couple other shows down there at Illinois Media School at ChicagolandSportsRadio.com. He was actually in studio for one of the shows that I did with Charles surprise you, Rich. You still doing this thing in Ralph Hill. So he's a good guy. So he does great work. He's up there at Hallis Hall. So go out there and support him, folks. You owe it to him. He does great work.
Some great stuff coming from Zack, and I gotta reiterate, Sid. I mean, I'm like chuckling at the amusement here because I don't think. Look, I just don't. I don't think they know what they're going to do. And I think I heard Tom Wall say it on, of course, Wall and Sylvia on Chicago on ESPN 1000 yesterday. He thinks that they're not in a lame duck year. He thinks that they may have gotten, signed to an extension, him and Nagy both, and that it's just keeping it a secret right now. That's why, they're making all these moves. What do you think?
If they draft a quarterback in which it seems like all signs are pointing to that what they're going to do, then I would not be surprised. Remember, we had a friend of the show now, Jason Leisure, of the Chicago Sun-Times, who covers the Bears for that publication, and I brought up the question about the contract. Of course, Mark Potash, his colleague at the Sun-Times, asked Ted Phillips during that famous presser back when the season was over back in January, what's the contract status for both Pace and Nagy? Of course, Ted Phillips said, well, that's not important. And of course, I took a personal offense to that. And of course, Jason said, you should take a personal offense to that. If you missed that interview, go at War Media on YouTube to look for that interview. But their contract status are both important. And like you said, Lakeena, it depends on what they do in this draft and what they do for the rest of this offseason. If they don't make any big splashes during the free agency period, I can see where people are coming from saying that they have more of a longer leash than usual. Because if they announce it right now, just for conversational purposes, if they announce the extensions of both those guys, especially Pace, that's not good. Especially after we've been witnessing for the past 24, 48 hours everywhere, Lakeena. PR is important, folks. There will not be good PR right now.
It's just hilarious to me what they're doing here. I mean, we kind of knew because we talked about it. We knew that maybe that they may have to release one of the veteran defensive guys. I mean, Hicks was probably the most, probably the most chance that he would do that, and then it ended up being Kyle Fuller because again, like Zack said, he was owed a lot of money next year, and of course he wasn't going to take a pay cut, nor should he. And so it's going to be interesting to see where he goes because there's going to be a lot of teams that are going to need a beef of their secondary. Maybe Baltimore, maybe Arizona. They made some moves.
I said Green Bay. If he goes up there, it's over. It is over. Remember, I brought it up during our interview with Zack. The Packers signed him to the offer sheet a couple of years ago. Yep. Of course, the Bears matched it, which I didn't have a problem with, both personally and professionally doing what we do on this side. But if he goes up there, it is over for Chicago. I would laugh, hysterically if that happens. We'll see. I would not be surprised at one bit.
Yeah, I mean, Denver, I have a friend out there in Denver who does media. He said that a lot of his, Broncos fans, friends, think that he may be a good fit for them. Look, maybe
he reunites with Vic Fangio. Yeah,
exactly. So that I could see that too. So look, I'm sure he'll have his choices, I think, and see what Eddie Jackson and seeing Lance Briggs, see both current and former Bears players sort of like with their emojis, with the face palms, and just like shrugging and like I don't know what they're doing. Spice Adams, I think his own gift sort of kind of like covered a lot of Bears fans' emotions right now. So I just don't know what to say at this point, Sid, because I mean, to listen to, what we saw, of course, we talked about the presser with, George McCaskey and Ryan Pace and Matt Nagy. And then another presser they had just about a week ago, which was really, what was the point of that? Because I don't know. But I mean, it'll be interesting to see what they decide to do here because I don't think they know what they want to do right now. I think they're just trying to save face. If they do end up, if Seattle sort of calls them up and says, I forgot to bring this up with Zack, but apparently according to reports that the Bears offer 3 first-rounders, 2 third-rounders, and I guess a couple of current players as their initial offer. But, the Seahawks said, no, we're not trading him. Who knows what will happen at this point as he gets closer and closer to the draft. But, what do you think?
As we always say every year, Lakeena, the around draft time is lion season, so we'll see what's true and what's not true. But I want to go back to Allen Robinson for just a second. We brought this up too with Zack. Allen Robinson got scared or as your kids would say, got scurred,
Mhm.
signing that tender because of the reports of the Bears trying to bring in Kenny Galladay from the Lions. I think two reasons why he did that. One, because of the Galladay news. And number two, at least from 1 year, even if I stay 1 year, I get a comparable quarterback in Andy Dalton, and my numbers can go up even more. You saw what I did with Trubisky and Falls. Now, if I'm out of here by this time next year, so be it. But at least for 1 year, I get a professional quarterback. He'll give me the ball the majority of the time. And potentially, I can have better weapons around me, Galladay or not. So my numbers will be up if it remains the same or gets better than it was this past season. I'll make more money in the open market because, like we said, it's not a big splash for wide receivers this offseason as far as free agents are concerned. So take the 1 year deal if you cannot work out a long-term extension. See what the plan is from front office. If you don't like it, you can seek a trade right now or just play out 2021. You'll get even more money by this time next year.
Oh, no. Look, if I were A-Rob, I'd be calling my agent right now and saying, look, get me out of here. See what they can do. Because, look, I mean, you know what the Bears are going to be next year. I mean, the defense is going to look completely different. And, yes, the offense, yes, you got a competent quarterback, veteran quarterback in Andy Dalton. But, he has been able to stay healthy the last couple of years. So, yes, okay, I can see what you're saying, Sid, that, maybe, he has a big year this coming year and, he gets a big contract elsewhere. But, look, you're getting close to 30 if you're Allen Robinson. You're like, look, I want to go someplace where I might have a chance to win. So
yeah, and long-term security, of course.
Exactly. So if I were I call my agent if I were A-Rob and say, look, okay, what can we do here? Because if they're letting Hicks, sort of pursue a trade partner, why can't we? So I can kind of see why he did that. No, maybe it is panic because of Galladay, but again, he's trying to look for 18 million, which I think, from what I read, the Bears only can go up to like maybe 11. So I don't know. I mean, I think I would want to trade if I were A-Rob, but that's just me.
Yeah, it's a realistic possibility. You have to explore all options. If the Bears are smart, the Bears are smart. Will they get fair value for Mr. Robinson? We don't know, but those issues remain to be seen to be figured out and coming to some type of conclusion. But hopefully, something in the camps of the Bears and Mr. Robinson will be solved very soon. Lakeena, we have a few minutes left here before we take our timeout. What moves have impressed you or stood out to you during these first few early days of NFL free agency?
I mean, the Patriots, you got to be impressed with what they're doing. But I think my thing is that where are they getting all this money? I mean, are they just,
out of Bill Belichick's pocket?
I guess so. I guess he's finally trying to spend. But again, they got Cam Newton back, which I was a little bit surprised that he would want to come back. But I guess, look, he loved the offense. He was very comfortable. He and Belichick kind of clicked. I think this is more of an ego thing for Belichick because, he saw what Brady did without him, able to kind of take the Bucs to the Super Bowl. And win
but Brady has better weapons than Cam right now.
And I think that's good.
New England still doesn't have a number one wide receiver. I know people can yell at me, Julian Edelman, but Julian Edelman is getting up there in age now. The injury's starting to pile up on him too. So so he's not a number one wide receiver, folks. He's just not.
No, and I think people need to realize that some of the moves that the Cardinals may have made, they've kind of beef up, of course, with J.J. Watt, they beef up their seventh, their front seven. And, the Patrick Peterson thing, I didn't think he was going to go back to the Cardinals, but I'm a little surprised he went with the Vikings. That should be an interesting one because that's sort of been the problem with them. And they got Xavier Rhodes, so they got, able to beef up that secondary. Let me see what else. A lot of moves. Washington. I mean, got Ryan Fitzpatrick. They got a, that's going to be interesting though. I think that Ron Rivera, there's this comfort level with him, and look, I think that the Dallas made some moves. I mean, look, that NFC East is actually going to no longer be a laughingstock. I mean, they got Curtis, the Washington got Curtis Samuel at a $34.5 million deal. Just kind of like have somebody to throw to. So I'm very intrigued about that whole NFC East because the Giants have made some moves. Getting Kyle Rudolph from Minnesota. Of course Dallas with Dak, and just I think that division is no longer a laughingstock. I think. Sid, what has impressed you so far? Some of the moves.
Well, two things. One, the NFC East, it looks like it'll be sort of competitive on paper. I'm using air quotes for those listening exclusively on our podcast. It looks like those teams will be competitive except for the Philadelphia Eagles, but they're another story. I know the Giants are in hot pursuit of Kenny Galladay as well. I know Daniel Jones, their quarterback, is going to his third year, so he needs to prove himself to a whole lot of people, to his teammates, and to the organization. And first of all, do not get hurt. But with that being said, there's a lot of pressure going to be on him next year. Also, running back Saquon Barkley, who was hurt against the Bears here in Chicago in week 2, I believe it was last year. He'll be coming back from his torn ACL. We wish him the best as well as he rehabbing as we speak. Going to the Arizona Cardinals, A.J. Green, they picked up for 1 year. He's going to be their version of Larry Fitzgerald. He's not going to stay there 14 years, but he's going to be a nice veteran target for Kyle Fuller. You have A.J. Green. I don't know if he's your number 2 wide receiver, but you can use him in the slot. You already have DeAndre Hopkins. So I'm with Zack Pearson. I was surprised that let Kenyon Drake go to I know he signed with the Raiders, but I was surprised they let him go because that Arizona running game before they acquired him last year, it was trash.
Unless I guess they might be they may have somebody behind somebody from the draft. I guess. I mean, that's the only reason why I can think of as to why they decided to kind of let him walk. I was a little surprised too. But same in the NFC West, San Fran, they beefed up their O-line. I mean, they kept Trent Williams to a really big deal. I mean, I think the Bears were after him for a little bit, but he ends up staying with the 49ers. Also, too, they got Alex Mack, the All-Pro center from Atlanta. So that shoring up that O-line. I mean, look, they definitely need that because that was sort of their issue last year. Also, too, with injury. So I'm surprised. I'm pretty. I like what what the 49ers are doing. They, of course, Kyle Juszczyk, they were able to keep him. So I think that. Look, that NFC West is going to be very competitive. So I'm liking the moves that San Fran made. They may have even more moves up their sleeve. We'll see what happens. But San Fran is another team that I'm intrigued by some of the moves they're.
Speaking of the NFC West, congrats to the Los Angeles Rams. I know that trade with the Lions with Matthew Stafford and Jared Goff is now official, but former Bear Leonard Floyd signed into a new deal. I believe, you can correct me if I'm wrong, Lakeena, $64 million for 4 years.
I believe.
If I'm not mistaken, I don't have the numbers in front of me, folks.
Okay, let me. Yeah, go ahead.
But
look,
he had 9.5. Yeah, he had 9.5 sacks last year for the Rams as he was part of that ranked number 1 defense in the league last year. Of course, if he stays healthy, like he did most of last year, helping out Aaron Donald, that's going to be a better football team, at least on the defensive line. I know they cut Jason Johnson. They cut a couple other guys, too, on the defense because of salary cap issues. But Leonard Floyd has some long-term security with that Rams team. There's going to be a whole lot of pressure for them in 2021 since now they have their quarterback that head coach Sean McVay wants in Matthew Stafford.
And you are right, Sid. 4 years, $64 million, 28 of that guaranteed. So yeah, I mean, look, I think Leonard Floyd, found a better system for him. And he said, look, we don't want you to have to just go get the quarterback. We're not, like asking you to do like anything like rocket science related or anything like that. Look, just go get the quarterback, and he's been able to do that. And like you said, Sid, I mean, staying healthy. I think that's sort of the number one thing. That was his issues here in Chicago, but I'm glad, he found a home, over in Los Angeles, one of the top defenses in the league, and good for him. I mean, Indy, they were able to keep Marlon Mack, for a 1-year deal. I know he had injury issues last year, but, hopefully, Carson Wentz, there's going to be a lot of the spotlight's going to be on him because, that team is set. That team is set to win now. I mean, they got the defense, they got the O-line. Look, they needed a quarterback, and look, the spotlight's on him. And if they don't win, the spotlight's going to be on him. If Frank Reich can't fix him, that's going to be a big, red bullseye. And he's looking. The one said, in the presser a couple of days ago that he knows that. So we'll see what he does. And there was another team that I wanted to kind of give a shout out to. But go ahead, Sid, if you have any more that you've.
I know that you were backing up the Colts defense last year, and rightfully so. If you listen to this program, you know that I'm correct. Speaking of the Indianapolis Colts, since Carson Wentz has that quarterback, I'll give you a few teams. I'm sticking with the AFC, of course. not knowing what the Colts are going to do in the draft, we're looking at their roster right now with Carson Wentz. Do you think they're better than Kansas City?
Shoot. Right now,
Right now.
the way things are set up, no. I would still
Okay.
pick the Chiefs. Yeah.
Do you think they're better than Baltimore?
Slight edge.
Okay.
Only because of like the overall team makeup. I mean, look, Baltimore, they still need help. They got a little help in their O line, but they need more help in the O line. Apparently, they tried to get Juju Smith-Schuster to come to sort of come to the dark side and play with the Ravens, but he ended up going back to the Steelers, as we said earlier. So, can I push on that? I want to push on that. I'm pushing on that.
Okay. The Buffalo Bills.
No.
The Pittsburgh Steelers, even though Big Ben is back from one more go-around.
I know, probably because I think because they lost to them last year, so I guess I'll get the Steelers to that one over the Colts.
And the Miami Dolphins.
Yes, I say they're better than the Dolphins.
Okay, because I know a whole lot of people we're talking about. Well, since they have Carson Wentz, they can take the team. They're supposed to be a Super Bowl winning team. They're a contender now. So from what you're saying, they're not better than maybe one or two teams in the AFC.
I think so. I think they're kind of right there in that. Like I said, this is all how Wentz does is going to be the wild card. So. Look, don't take my statements at face value, folks. It's all contingent on what Carson Wentz does.
Of course. And speaking of the Buffalo Bills, I know we didn't get into it too much for Zach, but former Chicago Bear Mitchell Trubisky signs a one-year deal with Buffalo to back up star quarterback Josh Rosen for 1 year at $2.5 million. Unless, heaven forbid, Josh Allen gets hurt, you'll see a whole lot of Trubisky. But you'll see a whole lot of Trubisky in the preseason because I'm pretty confident we'll have a normal preseason next year in the NFL coming in August. But outside of the preseason, hopefully if you're Trubisky, you don't get much action. But I think this is a good move for him. Obviously, you get away from Nagy. You have a new identity. You can start over, and you can actually flourish around better players and perhaps a better coaching staff.
And the system's better for him too. I think that offensive system for Baltimore is a little more conducive to his style. So I think that's sort of a better fit for him. So I said that maybe that I wasn't expecting Buffalo, but then I thought about it, that's probably a better fit for him.
Now, going back, Lakeena, excuse me, my schizophrenia is kicking in. Going back to the Indianapolis Colts, do you think they're better than the Cleveland Browns, who made the playoffs last year and won a game? And I know they beat the Colts last year in the regular season, of course, but do you think the Colts are better than the Browns right now?
Yeah, I know that they beat them, but I think if I had all things be equal, I think that they are better than the Browns right now.
All right. Our opening segment will come to a close, but we had to take this 20-second timeout as you're listening to the weekend edition of Second City Sports. On the flip side, we'll have news about the NFL and their new TV partners signing a new deal. Of course, we'll get into the Chicago Bulls. Ooh-wee. And we'll get into the best and worst of the NBA from this past week, and plus a whole lot more. I'm Sid. That's Lakeena. You're listening to the weekend edition of Second City Sports. Welcome back to the second half of the weekend edition of Second City Sports Zoom Style.
Zoom Style.
Along with Lakeena McGee, who is she. I am Cindy Brown, which is me. You can follow yours truly on the Twitter and the IG at SidKid80. Once again, that's SidKid80. That's SIDKID80. That's SIDKID80.
You can follow me at Keena McGee on the Twitter and at Keena_McGee on the IG.
You can go to weareRicoRadio.com for more details about our programming, articles, features, stories, and all that good stuff. That's WEAREREGAL radio.com. And you can go to War on Anchor, which kicks you over to Spotify, iTunes, SoundCloud, Stitcher, Google Play, wherever you can download your podcast. Make sure you type in that search engine box War on Anger for all our podcast program for your friends here at War Media. Speaking of War Media, we are on YouTube at War Media. Once again, at WARR Media on the tube. You can not only listen to us, but watch us do our thing live. Here we are as we give kisses and take our bows. Thank you very much in advance for your support.
Like, share, subscribe, and tell your friends.
And we are unapologetically fun. A programming note for your pleasure and for this is a disclaimer. As we are recording this program, we are watching the NCAA tournament along with you guys. We just took time out of our busy schedule to give you guys some good content. I know you guys are busy just like we are watching this college basketball tournament. Watch your pulls probably explode by now. I don't know about you, Lakeena. Sorry I didn't fill out one this year, even though I had Illinois winning it. But with that being said, it wouldn't be fair to talk about some games and that have been completed as we mute that. Some games that are completed, they're in games that are going on right now. So it wouldn't be fair to you guys. So the majority of the first round will be completed as we come back at you with a new episode on Tuesday. So we'll give you all our thoughts and reactions to the upsets, teams that are moving on, things that are good, things that are bad from the first two rounds of the NCAA tournament. So we'll give you the full boat of our Cisco and EB review of this tournament so far on our next episode for Tuesday. So we're watching the games with you guys. That's why you're not getting any breakdowns here as far as March Madness on this episode. We'll give you the full boat on our next episode for Tuesday. So we're good on that? Okay. Let's move on to the NBA and the Chicago Bulls, Lakeena. Things are not so good right now up on the west side of the city. Of course, the Bulls are on the road as we speak. Of course, as of this recording, they have already played their game against the Denver Nuggets on the road. If you're smart, you assume that's a loss. But that being said, let's review the two games that they played earlier this week. They beat the Oklahoma City Thunder on Tuesday. They lost to Spurs on Wednesday. But let's start off with the good news, Lakeena. They looked good against the Thunder, 123-102. Of course, Lauri Markkanen had the dunk of the night.
Yes.
He contributed with 22 points. Zach LaVine, in 31 minutes of action, had 40 points, including 7 of 12 on three-point land, 15 of 20 in field goal shooting overall. Otto Porter Jr., he's off the milk carton for now. He came out the bench for 19 minutes, scored 8 points. Wendell Carter Jr., in 23 minutes of action, scored 9 points and grabbed 9 rebounds. He was a plus 17. Lakeena, blocking the performance out from the Spurs, which we'll get to in a few minutes, but just concentrating on Tuesday's win against Oklahoma City. It is nice to see when the Bulls play team basketball, they actually do well. They had 24 assists off of 11 turnovers. That's almost a 2-to-1 ratio. When the Bulls move the basketball and everybody gets involved, outside of Zach LaVine's 40-point performance, but when the ball moves around and people get involved, they usually win. So simple, right?
Well, we weren't used to that, right? We weren't used to that, so we weren't used to, having a lead that, the Bulls didn't relinquish, and, they kind of played strong from start to finish. I mean, Lauri Markkanen looked good. Zach had a 40-point burger, I should say. Lauri Markkanen looked really good, probably the best he's looked since coming back from injury. Thad Young looked really good, kicking in with 17. So, and not a lot of turnovers, which is something that's, again, rare that, we see this Bulls team, not have a lot of turnovers and more assists, which is always always good to see. Satoransky made some, good plays and everything. So, and I think, look, Wendell Carter Jr., I think maybe that's probably his best spot, coming off the bench. He's actually played better since, he was taken out of the lineup and, coming off the bench, sort of playing his position, because once, he's out in the lineup, he's playing out of position. So I'm, good for him. Hopefully he can keep it up. And look, I mean, this is sort of nice to see. Look, OKC, they have Dort, but Dort wasn't there. So I think they were able to kind of take advantage of that. So that's why they were able to kind of take advantage the way they did against OKC. And they looked really good from start to finish.
Yeah, they did. And that's what you like to see in the young team, as we are led to believe that this Bulls team are a competitive team. and they're trying to make a push for the playoffs to play in that play-in tournament, that 7th to 10th spot. So it was good for the Bulls to take care of business against a lesser opponent. Of course, we mentioned on our last podcast looking at that the Bulls lost to OKC on the road earlier this year, blowing the big lead and losing it in overtime. It was nice to actually see them play a full 48-minute game and get their revenge on OKC. Now, the next night, which was Wednesday, it did go so well. The Bulls led by a large margin in that second half. The San Antonio Spurs came back to beat the Bulls 106-99. Jacob Polatil, excuse me, I'm going to pronounce his name correctly, led San Antonio with 20 points and 16 rebounds. He was part of that trade, the Kawhi Leonard trade from a couple of years ago, which helped the Spurs win that title. Zach LaVine led the Bulls with 29 points and 6 rebounds and 6 assists. Lakeena, as we've been talking about all year, this is what happens when you have a young team and you have a team that's trying to find its own identity. You're going to win some games, you're going to lose those games. At this point in the season, the Huggies should be off these quote-unquote baby Bulls. They're not babies anymore. They're grown men. If you want to take your game to the next level, you want to be considered a playoff team, even against better competition. As I told you, Lakeena, in our last episode, beware of San Antonio because they were going to come ready to play because Greg Popovich always has his teams prepared. You cannot get away with games like this if you're the Chicago Bulls. Yes, LaMarcus Aldridge is no longer part of the Spurs players, but they still have ballers over there, as the kids would say. They still have players over there, and they play within Popovich's system. And you saw that in the second half as they turned it up another notch, and the Bulls looked lost.
It's sort of like, Space Jam where, the stars have like their secret stuff. So, and I think that's probably what happened with the Spurs. I know DeRozan wasn't there. He was, went to his father's funeral. But look,
condolences to him and his family.
Absolutely. And look, I mean, they've got some good, decent players. Patty Mills had 14 off the bench. He's kind of let that come back. Paletti had that, P and Paletti both sort of let that come back. I mean, you hope that this isn't gonna be one of those losses to come back to bite the Bulls. I mean, yes, they've had losses like this, but you also, at the same time though, you also wonder like, okay, yeah, you should have hang on to this one at least. You had them on the ropes and and everything else. I think they just ran out of gas. And look, I mean, this is what happens when you have a young team that's still learning how to win and sort of learning how to play together. And I mean, the thing is, the East is so like, jammed up, smushed together. They're still like in 9th place right now. They're still right there, in the cusp of those play-ins. So look, I mean, let's hope that they don't have any more of these types of games because, especially coming up later in the year, you're going to be playing against tougher competition. You don't want to have these kinds of games where you're sort of like, oh, crap, we should have won that game against the Spurs. We would have had a 7th or an 8th. So I don't know. I mean, this is sort of one of those head scratchers, but again, in a long season, this stuff happens.
These things do happen throughout the course of the year, but if, like you mentioned, if you're the Chicago Bulls, if you're trying to get to that next level, which is becoming a playoff team, you cannot give games away like this. You don't have too many mulligans, as you said, Lakeena, to just throw away in the garbage can because these games later in the year will come back to bite you in the butt. Heaven forbid, I do mean heaven forbid for this argument only. If you let's just say the Bulls start on a mini winning streak and they get up to 6th or maybe 5th, I think that's a little bit far fetched. But let's just say they get up around that 7-6 spot. These types of games will be the difference between securing a playoff spot and having to play in that tournament through that 7-10 spot.
Yeah, I think that's going to be one of those things where you hope this game doesn't come back to bite the Bulls, but it's like I said, it's going to be interesting to see where this team goes from here. Let's talk about the rest of the NBA for a second, Sid. What impressed you most this week in the NBA? Because there were definitely some head scratchers, no doubt.
I'll go with the current game that I watched. It was on Thursday between the Charlotte Hornets and the Los Angeles Lakers. Of course, LaMelo Ball continues to shine for the Charlotte Hornets. He had 26 points and 5 assists again. Lakeena, as I said before, the people need to pay attention to the Charlotte Hornets. I'm not saying they're a team they're going to do damage in the playoffs and things along that line, but I like that team. Of course, Gordon Hayward is on there. Scary Terry Rozier
Mm-hmm.
is a part of the mix as well. If you look at the final score between that game on Thursday between the Hornets and the Lakers, which the Lakers won 116 to 105. The Lakers, they still getting their act together as we wait for the return of Anthony Davis, which will hopefully will be sooner rather than later, as he dealing with another injury right now. The Hornets is not as bad as people think. LaMelo Ball had 26 points and 5 assists, 5 rebounds and 7 assists on Thursday night. LeBron James had to carry the load with 37 points, but the Hornets are a talented team to watch, and I know many people are sleeping on them because they're not on national television a lot, but LaMelo Ball is clearly the rookie of the year, folks. He's what makes that team go.
I mean, look, PJ Washington, has looked good for them too. Gordon Hayward, I know he hasn't done much, but he's been a contributor there as well. So, I mean, look, I
Hmm.
like this Hornets team, but look, I think they're kind of right there with the Bulls, sort of I'll say,
Yeah,
a somewhat better Bulls team. I'll say it like that. I mean, they've got
yeah,
the
just slightly.
yeah, they got the talent, got veteran coaches, but again, they're still kind of learning how to win and learning their way around each other. So look, I think that they might be a dangerous team, especially in that lower tier. So we'll see what happens with the Hornets. But for the Lakers, I mean, look, I think Dennis Schroeder has stepped up a lot. Horton
Hmm.
Tucker has stepped up a lot off the bench. Kuzma's been playing very well. So it sort of feels like I'm sure there's going to be some games when LeBron is going to take a game off. So I think if you're, hopefully AD will be back soon and, have to worry about LeBron and LeBron can actually take
Hmm.
some games off. So I'm other than this from the Lakers perspective that, they won 4 in a row. So yeah, as of this recording. So I'm kind of impressed on what the Lakers have done.
Also, too, let's give props to the Portland Trail Blazers. They swept their 2-game series against the New Orleans Pelicans at home early this week. Tuesday's final score was 125 to 124. Damian Lillard, or as the kids would call him, Dame Dollar, dropped a 50-piece on Zion Williamson in the Hornets. And of course, on Thursday, the Blazers finished off the 2-game sweep with a 101-93 win. Damian Lillard came down to earth a little bit, if you could say that at the least. He scored 36 points. Zion Williamson led New Orleans with 26. He had 10 rebounds as well. Looking at the New Orleans Pelicans, Lakeena, I want to say that they're supposed to be. I thought they were going to be like the Bulls or the Charlotte Hornets, as we mentioned a few moments ago. It's kind of taking the next step of perhaps sneaking into the playoffs this year. Unfortunately, for whatever reason, and I like Stan Van Gundy. I think he's the right coach for that team. Just something isn't right with that organization. I know they got GM David Griffin, and he's going to do a fine job, but just something is missing. And like I said, I know J.J. Redick is on the trading block. I get that. Maybe Brandon Ingram, who knows? But I like him as well. I know he made the All-Star team for the first time last year when the All-Star game was here in Chicago. But I really want to get behind them. Actually, Zion, I think, is really playing very well. But I know people are not paying attention to him because they're not winning consistently. But just something isn't right with that team.
Yeah, I think that there's a lot of things missing there. I think they need more. I think just need more talent there. And I think, look, they've got sort of, you got Zion, of course, but again, he can't do it all by himself. And look, I think you're going to need somebody sort of like that extra guy there to help him out. I know Ingram's up and down too, so you really don't know what to expect from him. Steven Adams, I mean, look, he's a cult figure, but again, does he have anything left in the tank? So I don't know what's going to happen. Lonzo's up and down too. They really don't have much much contribution off the bench. So, and I think that's sort of been the thing. I mean, that's I think there's definitely needs to be more talent there. I think.
Yeah, there needs to be more talent. Hopefully it comes soon because if it doesn't, when Zion's contract is up in a couple of years, he may be thinking about walking, but you still have a little bit while to go before that happens. So hopefully it doesn't get to that point if you're the New Orleans Pelicans. A few more games to recap for you guys for this week. Tuesday, The Jazz defeated the Celtics on the road 117-109. Rudy Gobert had another double-double, 16 points, 12 rebounds. Jaylen Brown led the Celtics with 28 points and 5 rebounds and 7 assists. Lakeena, I still like the Celtics to do some damage in the playoffs like a year ago, but it seems like to me, and this has been an issue all season, and particularly on this show for the last few weeks, you think when they take a step forward, they take 2 steps back, and you're not going to win that way come playoff time. Especially with the competition in the East with Milwaukee. I know they made a move we'll get to in a second.
Yeah.
But what Milwaukee did as far as the trade is concerned, the way Philadelphia is playing right now, especially without Joel Embiid, he should be back in a couple of weeks, hopefully. And the way that all those other top teams in the East are playing right now, if you're Boston, you cannot afford many mulligans either. We talked about this with the Bulls earlier, but Boston is a better team. But
well, I think that's what you said.
I barely can find a word on how to describe this team right now.
Look, I think that's what you said, Sid. I mean, the Celtics are not the Bulls. The Celtics are a more top-tier team than the Bulls are, and I think that's the problem. We've been giving them mulligans for the last 2-3 years. Is it the coaching? Is it the fact that the players just aren't ready for, to handle the sort of the big top? I mean, I don't know. I mean, look, I saw a little bit of that game against Utah, and look, Donovan Mitchell, I mean, look, he's doing his thing, and you kind of have to, give him props for what he's been able to do. And look, Jordan Clarkson and, Joe Ingles, they've both contributed off the bench, so you got to give them props there. And I think, look, is it their defense? Is it the fact that we're not getting like a full on, contributions from everybody? I mean, look, at this point, I think, I don't want to say that Brad Stevens should fear for his job. He really shouldn't. I mean, he's far from that, but you got to look in the mirror and see that maybe it's some of the know your personnel, NYP, as we always call it.
Yep. You're listening to the weekend edition of Second City Sports along with Lakeena McGee, who is she. I am Cindy Brown, which is me, as we discuss the best and worst of this past week from the National Basketball Association. A couple of games from Wednesday, Lakeena. The Nets beat the Pacers 124-115. James Harden had another triple-double with 40 points, 10 rebounds, and 15 dimes. Kevin Durant did not play. Blake Griffin has not been able to play yet ever since he was picked up via free agency from Detroit. The Detroit released him. Kyrie Irving should be back soon within their next game. Lakeena, I like the Brooklyn Nets, but is it fair for me to say that we can't really judge this team until everybody gets back healthy? Because that's really going to find out who they really are.
I don't think you're being out of bounds saying that. I think that's what people want to see. People want to see how this team looks at full strength. The problem is that we haven't been able to. I mean, Griffin's been having some issues. Of course, KD, he may be out another week with that injury. So I mean, look, they're playing well right now without them, which is a good thing. But again, if you're trying to win a championship, you're going to need to be at full strength. So I'm thinking that I want to wait. I'm like you. I want to wait and see how this team does at full strength, because I think that's the best way to judge them.
Yeah, they look good right now, but they need all their pieces to be healthy and gelling together come playoff time. And so we'll see what happens with the Brooklyn Nets down the road. Another final from Wednesday. This was probably one of the best exciting games of the last couple of weeks throughout the league. The Milwaukee Bucks defeated the Philadelphia 76ers 109-105 in overtime. Giannis Antetokounmpo, a.k.a. the Greek Freak, had 32 points, 15 rebounds. Ben Simmons led Philadelphia with 13 points and 10 rebounds and 12 assists for another triple-double. Of course, Giannis sat there after the game on the court. Lakeena, people went bananas. I said, why?
I think he kind of earned it, though, because I think he scored like half their points in overtime. So he had everyone to kind of do that little pose. Mark Jones, who was in the game for ESPN, sort of said, "Hey, do your pose, Big G," and something like that. So look, he earned the right. I mean, look, they're going to be playing again a couple of times too before the season's over with. So look, the Sixers can kind of put this, shut them up and just say, look, get your revenge next time you guys play. They play in a few more weeks. So I was fine with what Giannis did. I mean, look, we really see some that kind of thing from him because he's sort of an even keeled guy. But I think he wants to try to win a title this year. So look, if he wants to do stuff like that, let him. I mean, that's part of his personality. So I had no problem with it. But as far as the game itself, I mean, look, I watched a little bit of that the tail end of that game, going into overtime, and look, the Bucks looked really impressive. I mean, they made some defensive stops late. I think. Look, Philly's been holding down the fort pretty good without Embiid, but I think you saw, especially in that overtime, you can kind of see why they do need Embiid back. Hopefully, he will be back soon. So, look, I think that hopefully by the next time these guys do play again, Embiid will be back. So that's what I want to see.
Yeah, Dwight Howard, let's not forget, he's been doing a well of a job subbing in for Embiid in the starting lineup. But like you said, they need Embiid in the long run to get themselves primed for hopefully a long playoff run. The last game from Wednesday, this was part of the ESPN doubleheader. The Dallas Mavericks pulled away from the Clippers 105-89. As I said, Lakeena, the Mavericks have to get it together. Luka Doncic is carrying the Mavericks on his back. He scored 42 points. Kristaps Porzingis is continuing to produce again. This is the healthiest he's been in the last couple of years, ever since he's been in Dallas, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
So that 1-2 punch continues to play well and stay healthy. Dallas could be a team to be reckoned with. I know they started off shaky to start the year, but it looks like they finally turned the corner.
Yeah, I mean, look, that was his ninth 40-point game, tying Kareem and Devin Booker for 10th most all time by players 22 and younger. Let's forget he's only 20. We just turned 21. So yeah, I mean, look, I think we're seeing why that he totally deserves all the props that he got coming in from overseas. But as far the flip side with the Clippers, they're kind of going back to the same habits that sort of plagued them in the bubble last winter. So they're kind of going back into those, and that's what I'm concerned with. I mean, I like I said, I wasn't worried about Dallas because I knew that once they got at full strength and Luka has been able to do what Luka does, they're gonna need more of that, more contributions from other people. That way he won't wear himself out, and they've been doing that too with Porzingis. More senior, played some good minutes late, but. But again, this is more about the Clippers. This is more about the Clippers. Than the Mavs. Like Hardaway Jr. Stepped in. Helped that out. Kleber has been sort of the guy there too. So
he had a big game on Wednesday.
He did, and look that the Clippers. But on the flip side of the Clippers, I mean, like I said, they're going back to those bad habits, and I'm more worried about the Clippers than I am about the Mavs right now.
Yeah, same here. As we said before on the show, Lakeena, a couple weeks ago, I know we haven't heard any controversy coming out of that locker room, thank goodness. But like you said, watching that game on Wednesday, it seems to me that the Clippers are starting to develop some bad habits, and you don't want that going into the playoffs.
Absolutely, and probably one of the biggest upsets from Wednesday's games. You got Cleveland beating Boston. Colin Sexton had 29. That's a season high for him, and again. They're back at 500. The Celtics are, and again, going and continuing our conversation from just a few minutes ago, Sid, should Celtics fans be concerned again?
They should. Yes, you're at 500. You should be better than this. I'm not going to get on the fire Brad Stevens bandwagon right now. That we tried to put that out on the show a couple weeks ago. We'll let some of the folks in Boston do that. Some of you dumb folk in the national media do that. We're not going to carry that here. I'm not ignoring the elephant in the room, but you're not going to fire a coach at this point in the year, Lakeena. You just have to write it out to see what happens. If you come to Danny Ainge, the GM, comes to that decision at the end of the year, so be it. But right now, it's not going to happen. So we're not going to drum up that horse again. So if you're looking for it, it's not going to be found here. So Boston just needs to be more consistent to turn this thing around.
I totally agree with you, Sid. Going back to Thursday's games, Utah and Washington. Bradley Beal have 43. Russell Westbrook doing what he does, and it's just amazing. Had another triple double a couple of nights ago, and look, I think he's showing you that he's still pretty good at this thing. Even though I know some people want to consider him afterthought since he's now in DC, but again, they looked really good, and you got to give them props for pulling off that shocker.
Yeah, you have to give them props, and this is what happens at this time of the year in the NBA. This the second half is underway. Teams are jockeying for position. You still have another month, a month and a half to go, but this is what it's all about. So you see, like things like this happen.
Absolutely. And another upset, the T-Wolves. The T-Wolves upset the Phoenix Suns. Anthony Edwards, I think, continues to kind of show you why that maybe
Hmm.
he should, have get some attention. He scored 42 and he became the third youngest player in NBA history to score 40 in a game, trailing only LeBron and
Hmm.
KD. So you got to give him props for that performance. He kind of sort of, I don't want to say he single-handedly, helped, but that definitely was his 42 definitely helped in that cause for them.
Yeah, if you're the Phoenix Suns, that's a bad loss. It may come down to if and when it comes down to as far as seeding is concerned, come playoff time, there'll probably be one of the games they'll look back on and say, if we wouldn't be in the Timberwolves, we may be in a fourth spot instead of the sixth spot, and vice versa. So we'll see what happens. Minnesota, they need a redo. Whew. That Tom Thibodeau playoff appearance from a couple years ago with Jimmy Butler seems like a distant memory now.
Absolutely, and also too, of course, Karl Anthony Towns had 41, so he and Edwards scored like 2/3 of the T Wolves
Yeah.
points. So between the two of them, they help pull off that upset against the Suns. And look, like I said, I mean, look, you're gonna have Suns fans that they shouldn't be too concerned or freak out, but you're gonna have games like this in a long
Hmm.
season. You're still gonna be right there in the top four, so I wouldn't freak out too much if you're a Suns fan.
I wouldn't freak out too much if I'm a Suns fan either. So, like you said, as long as they keep winning, hopefully this game wouldn't come back to bite them in the butt, like I suggested before. Now, before we move on, Lakeena, to preview this weekend's games, the Bucks made a move, and I'm actually proud of them for once. I'm not saying I'm going to jump on the bandwagon, but I see where they're coming from. They traded for this grown old veteran PJ Tucker from the Houston Rockets, which bolsters up their toughness, bolsters up their front line. He gives them another veteran presence. Especially, I don't know if he's going to start or not, but he gives them another scoring option besides Giannis and Chris Middleton. But most importantly, he's going to give you toughness. I know they have former Chicago Bull Bobby Portis, but you got another enforcer when need be in PJ Tucker. I like this move. Now, am I giving Milwaukee the Eastern Conference title? No. But do they better their chances with this move? Yes.
I think they want to win. They want to, and I think that the brass wants to show Giannis, look, we want,
Mm-hmm.
we want to win too, like, just as much as you do. So I'm okay with this. I mean, look, he's sort of like you said, he's kind of like that, the big enforcer. Which is weird because he's actually very mild mannered off the court, but he's actually a big enforcer off, on the court. So I think this is what, like you said, so this is sort of like the thing that's been missing from Milwaukee, which has been toughness. And look, they got it with him.
Yeah, so like I said, even if Milwaukee finishes the regular season with the best record, they still had to prove it to me in the playoffs. So I think this is where PJ Tucker's experience and value will come into play. This is more about the playoffs than anything else.
Oh,
And as I
absolutely.
said, that him and Bobby Portis should add some toughness to that team, unlike what they had a couple years ago,
Yeah.
especially last year in the bubble where they got punked around by the Miami Heat.
We all saw it, right? I think
Yeah.
getting Tucker there, I think they looked really bad. They kind of like just folded up, when they in the loss to the Celtics. But I mean, I hope. Look, I'm hoping that this will definitely help them because I think, like you said, so this has sort of been like the thing that, as great as a team is, that's the thing that's been missing is that grinded toughness. So
Hmm.
we'll see. Tucker kind of we've seen him do it throughout his career. So
Hmm.
why not? Why not with Milwaukee? So I'm hoping this move works out for them.
Yeah, let's see what happens down the road with the team up north of Chicago. You're listening to the weekend edition of Second City Sports along with Lakeena McGee. Who is she? I am Sidney Brown, which is me. As we'll give you a quick preview of this weekend's games from the National Basketball Association, even though we are keeping our eyes on the NCAA tournament. Just a couple of games for Saturday, which is tonight if you're listening to us on a Saturday afternoon or early evening. At 2:30 p.m. Chicago time, the Atlanta Hawks will take on the Los Angeles Lakers. LeBron James versus Trae Young. Atlanta has been a disappointing team throughout the season. Of course, they fired Laura Pierce, the head coach. Nate McMillan's the interim head coach right now. And Atlanta's starting to turn around a little bit. I don't think it's going to be enough against the Lakers. As of this recording, the Hawks are one game over 500, but we'll see what Atlanta does on the road against the Lakers. Another game, Sacramento at the 76ers at 7 p.m. This is going to be a good one. The NBA TV highlight game. The Golden State Warriors will travel to Memphis to take on John Morant in the Memphis Grizzlies.
Steph versus Ja, I think that should be an interesting one there. And it's going to be on NBA TV. So if you want to take a break from watching the March Madness games, or if your favorite team's not playing, or you're waiting for your favorite team, to play, or your alma to play, watch a little NBA.
Yeah, also, too, at 8 p.m. tonight, the San Antonio Spurs, hopefully they'll get DeMar DeRozan back as they'll travel to Milwaukee to take on the Bucks as the Spurs will continue on their East Coast road trip.
And that should be a fun one, too. And also Charlotte and the Clippers. I know you've been lauding, Charlotte, all years, all seasons. So it should be interesting. Hopefully the Clippers can get it together, too, because they've got they're falling back to some bad habits. So I'm a little worried right now, but not too worried at this point.
Yeah. All right, let's move. Let's move. All right.
All right. Go ahead, Sid.
All right, let's move to tomorrow's action, which is Sunday afternoon. At high noon, you'll have the Indiana Pacers traveling to South Beach to take on Alana Techhauer's Miami Heat. At 2 p.m., this is going to be fun. I'll actually be watching this one live via my computer. The New Orleans Pelicans taking on the Denver Nuggets. Shout out to our good friend Katie Wingy of Altitude Sports. The Nuggets, the state of Colorado and the city of Denver just opened up that arena to allow fans in to watch hockey with the Colorado Avalanche, and of course allow fans to watch some Denver Nuggets basketball. Of course, it's limited capacity, of course. So shout out to that state of Colorado, city of Denver. So some fans will be allowed to watch their teams play.
Absolutely, should be a lot of what the atmosphere is going to be like there, even though limited. But I'm sure the atmosphere is going to look really good. NBA TV game, you got Washington and Brooklyn. That should be an interesting one there. You got Westbrook versus Harden, two former teammates, sort of, that should be a lot of fun. Of course, the Bulls and Detroit, look, Detroit's been giving the Bulls some issues, but the Bulls, hopefully the Bulls will be able to pull that out. Philly and New York, the Knicks, that should be a fun one there at 7 o'clock.
Yep, and wrap it up the Sunday night schedule, 9 p.m. Central Standard Time on NBA TV. The Lakers will travel to Phoenix to take on the Suns. And at the same time, the Dallas Mavericks and the Portland Trail Blazers. Dame Dollar versus Luka Doncic once again. I'm definitely be watching that game too via my computer.
I'm surprised that wasn't the NBA TV game, but I guess it's sort of Sophie's choice. Sophie's choice between that game and the Lakers and the Suns. That's sort of Sophie's choice. But look, I'll be watching this game also via my laptop, so that should be a fun one there. All these Sunday afternoon, Sunday night games, tomorrow night's game should be a lot of fun. So enjoy. If you want to take a break from the college hoops, you're more of an NBA person. Why are you not a college hoops person? How dare you not be? But that's another story. But look, if you want to watch the pros play, that's fine. There's some great matches coming up this weekend.
Yep, and a couple of games for Monday night at 7:30. You'll have the Charlotte Hornets wrapping up their West Coast road trip as they'll take on the San Antonio Spurs at 7:30. At 8 o'clock at the United Center here in Chicago, the Bulls will host the Utah Jazz. Donovan Mitchell versus Zach LaVine, and then at the same time in Memphis, you'll have the Celtics taking on the Grizzlies. And at the same time, the NBA TV game on the night, this is for Monday, the Pacers will travel to Milwaukee to take on the Bucks.
Should be a lot of fun, all those games. And I'm looking forward to that Bulls-Jazz game because I'm looking forward to see, hopefully the Bulls will get their butts kicked too badly. Hopefully they can. Look, I'm hoping that they can put up that fight. I mean, they're going to have a couple of days off, so hopefully they'll have that. They'll be coming back from Detroit, too, so hopefully they'll have some energy and they'll be able to have that fight that we've been seeing, all season.
Yes, so we got a couple minutes left before we call it quits and get back to watching March Madness. Okay. You wanted to talk about the NFL's new television deal, which was signed, sealed, and delivered this past Wednesday.
Yeah, and sort of a not too big of a surprise, I think. Sid, we talked about it. These last few weeks. I mean, they want to get the I's dotted and T's crossed. Look how I'm sure like my grammar school teachers are probably like having a field day. Like it's the other way. The kid like, okay, fine, kids, all right, guys. But on a serious note, though, I mean, this is a 10-year deal. It starts in 2023. That runs through 2033. $10 billion. Let me say it again, $10 billion with a B. Sort of, kind of, really the main differences are that ABC is now the Super Bowl rotation, starting in 2026 and 2030. The other networks, CBS, Fox, and NBC, they're going to have 3 Super Bowls each. So that's sort of how they're evening that out. Most of the packages are the same. Fox is going to have the NFC afternoon games. CBS is going to have the AFC. ESPN will have the Monday night games. And, of course, NBC will have the Sunday night games. And really, like, the big difference is that all the Thursday night games will be exclusively streamed on Amazon Prime.
But who's going to produce those games?
I believe NFL Network. NFL Network's going to be going to produce those, so they'll have that covered. Also, streaming is going to be a big thing here, Sid. Each of the networks are going to be having games in their streaming services. I know ESPN, they're going to have one of those international games, streamed exclusively on their ESPN Plus streaming service. CBS and will have a lot of their games on their now Paramount Plus package streaming service. NBC will have it on their Peacock service. And Fox will have I think I forgot the name, but I think it's like VOD or something like that, or VOD or Vox or something like that. I'll look it up. But yeah, they're going to have it on their streaming services too. So going to be a lot of streaming. It's also going to be a 17-game regular season, it looks like. So, that, a lot. So a lot to unpack here, Sis. So what stands out to you?
Well, for the first time in the history of the world, Monday Night Football will have its flex schedule.
Yep.
And if you're ABC, ESPN, thank goodness, because
some
of those Monday night games in recent history, especially after Thanksgiving, the matchups look good on paper, but the teams coming in due to injuries, a bad play, or what have you, and the combination of the two at times, it just wasn't worth watching. As I said before, for many years, Monday Night Football is just not what it used to be. It's all on Sunday night now. And so this is great for the NFL and Monday Night Football. You can flex that potential bad matchup that you force people to watch. You can choose the best matchup and still get a good quality. Well, now, will it ever get back to what it once was when we were kids or before we were born? I doubt it, but this is a step in the right direction if you're ABC and ESPN.
Also, I want to clean up with the Fox streaming services is AVOD streaming platform Tubi. They'll deliver the NFL content for their digital platform too. So wanted to clean that up a little bit. So a lot more digital stuff. There are going to be some games that are going to be exclusive on the digital platforms. I mean, it's going to be like all across this, over-the-air television and whatnot. ESPN will actually now have both a divisional and a wild card and a divisional round game. So that's another part of this new deal that starts in 2023. But I mean, look, I think that, people need to remember too that I think there's still going to be an appetite or a market for it. It's hard to predict what's going to happen in 2033, but I think by the time the next TV contract, I think there is going to be more streaming. But again, look, you're still going to have people that are going to be watching it over the air. They're going to want over the air. That's where they're going to be the big ratings are going to be. So I think that'll still be a big part of it, coming up in about 12 years from now.
Yeah, let's just hope that these TV networks, they're on as far as streaming is concerned. Let's just hope when these people and these companies count the ratings, they count the streaming services as well.
Yeah, I think that's also where the couple that has already said that they're going to do that. So because the ratings over the year have not, have kind of gone down consistently over the years, and more people are streaming, so more people are DVRing.
Like us, DVR. Like I said, there are games going on throughout all sports. We're just sticking to the NFL here, but especially on Sundays, we talked about this before, Lakeena. I'll have Red Zone on my main TV. I have the game of the week which is streamed via my computer, and I have the DVR for the Bears, which I can watch later. So uh, the the NFL, along with these other leagues, in particular NFL, knows that we're watching 2 or 3 events at once. Now, how can you watch 3 events at once? I don't know. I could barely keep up with 2. Okay, so but especially for Sundays, minus the primetime schedule, which they are the only games in town. Sunday afternoons from noon our time to 6:30. You watching multiple games that's going on at once, and they know that, you know that, and I know that. Your listeners and viewers know that too. So just have more options for streaming. It just makes the product much better and better for your consumer as well.
And also, like you said, so they want more choices. Consumers want more choices. That's all. That's all they want. I mean, people
Yep,
want.
I keep saying it, man.
Yeah.
You need and want more options.
Yeah, because
Folks want and need more options.
yeah, because look, yes, there are more folks that are streaming, but I think a lot of them, if they had to choose between like games, especially, I think they would rather watch it on on television, whether on whether the network, NBC, CBS, what have you, instead of having to look through their streaming app. I know, yes, more and more folks are doing the streaming thing. They're having the Peacock and Paramount Plus and all that.
Cord cutting is big too. It still is.
Yeah. So, but again, there's still going to be a lot of people that are going to be watching it on television. So, because a lot of people aren't going to be ready for that. So, look, I think, like you said, I think people want more options.
Yep, and we're living in a technology world that's vastly improving, and the way that we consume sports. We talked about this, Lakeena, for the last few weeks, not just with this NFL TV deal, what the NHL is doing as well, along with ESPN putting the games on Hulu and ESPN Plus. NHL TV will no longer exist after this current season. So people want and need options, and so you got to find creative and better ways for fans to consume your product. The way that we consume our products when we were growing up, just TV and radio, you have in national television for all your sports was starting to broadcast every day. It wasn't to the point that we are now, obviously, and there was no social media back then. There was no internet, but the way that it is now, you got to have more options. And so it's just the way that we consume our sports. There's nothing better than live sports television. That's just a fact. You're not going to take that away. But the way that we consume it, the way we did it growing up, those days are gone and it's not coming back.
And I think finally the networks are realizing that. I think that's what's helping the fact that the networks are realizing that. Look, the way look, when we were growing up, not to age ourselves, folks, but the way when we grew up,
speak for yourself.
Well, okay, I'll speak for myself then. we only had like 3 networks. You had like an independent network, like 2 or 3 independent networks, and a couple of PBS networks. Because remember, Fox was not a network then. Fox was just 20th Century Fox. So they were the big media entity back then. And look, I mean, you had cable, but look, it was very expensive back then. So.
Not compared to what it is now.
Yeah. So, well, yeah, that's true. But yeah, it wasn't, accessible still. So now it is accessible, and you got streaming services and whatnot. So who knows what's going to happen in the next, 10 or 12 years, at the tail end of this TV deal. So I think that these companies, the media companies, especially by merging, they're realizing that, look, let's try to maximize this. Let's try to give people options, like you keep saying. So I'm looking forward to it. I think it'll be interesting to see how they maneuver this, especially with the Super Bowls and whatnot. So I'm looking forward to see what happens here, because it should be very interesting, no doubt.
Yeah, and before we get up out of here, we talked about this before, Lakeena, and this is to your folks at CBS Sports, the NFL, CBS. Let's not forget about the gambling aspect of this either. To the NFL today on CBS, involve gambling in your pregame shows. You get more people to watch. That's why more of your casual fans are watching the NFL. Involve more gambling on your pregame shows like they do at Fox with stealing Terry Bradshaw's money. Please do that.
I'm sure they will.
Thank you.
I'm sure they will. I think Adele's, Commissioner Goodell talked about it, and I think you will be seeing it more and more. A lot of these pregame shows. I think CBS will have like a gambling segment. I said before, they'll probably have a gambling show or a gambling segment at some point, because I think that you'll get more ratings in your pregame shows once you do that. I mean, we know ESPN does it for their pregame show. We know Fox does it, of course, with Terry, stealing Terry's money. So hopefully maybe they can do look, maybe they can do hey, take, Coach Cowher's money or take Boomer's money. I don't know, but look, they got the personality to do it. So, or let Nate Burleson do it. I mean, look, come on. But I mean, look, let's hope that, maybe, especially now that, people, there is gambling now and gambling is legal now. So I hope so. I mean, I hope that they can kind of come to the 21st century and say, look, get some gambling segments coming up, kids.
Yes, that's why the NFL is popular too. It's not just fantasy football anymore, folks. It's DraftKings, it's FanDuel. I'm not sure I'm missing one or two more, but that's another reason why, especially in these last 5-6 years, that the NFL is more popular than any other sport in our country, folks.
Yeah, so it should be very interesting. Also, too, a quick shout out to the New York Rangers for beating the Philadelphia Flyers earlier this week without a coaching staff, pretty much. I think they had to get it a couple of staffs from their AHL team, I think, Sid, I think they had to get it from them. So because all their coaches were quarantined because of COVID. So look, that was a pretty impressive, and they looked really good. So I got to give them props for that, because I'm sure that was not easy for those players.
Well, they show more fight than the Blackhawks. We'll get on them on the next episode because it's not looking good. We'll leave it at that.
I'm getting a little antsy here, but on that note, you can follow me at Keita McKee on the Twitter and Lakeena on the IG.
You can follow yours truly, Sydney Brown, on the Twitter and the IG at SidKid80. Once again, that's SidKid80. That's SIDKID80. That's SIDKID80. You can go to our website, weareregalradio.com. You can check out our this podcast, Second City Sports, along with our other shows from War Media by simply go to War on Anchor, which keeps you over to Spotify, iTunes, SoundCloud, Stitcher, Google Play, and that iHeartRadio app. We're available on all podcast platforms. Just type in that search engine box, WARR on Anchor. We're also on the Tube, aka YouTube, at War Media. Once again, at WARR Media. You can only watch us but listen to us live as we do our thing. And we are available on all social media platforms at War Media. That's Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at War Media once again.
Support our shows like In the Scope with Josh Hicks and That's Davis, or our buddy Ken Davis, and also the two shows that Kyle does. I forgot the name of those shows. Sorry, Kyle.
Running with War.
Running with War with Kyle in the game.
And in the building as well.
Yeah, so look, we got a lot of great shows. So don't just support us. Of course we appreciate it, but look, we got a lot of other great shows on War Media that you guys can support. So please support, and get those likes up.
Yeah, and also to shout out to Ken Davis, as we said last week. He's the new host of the Under Center podcast. That's the Chicago Bears podcast for NBC Sports Chicago. They just dropped an episode a couple of days ago reviewing their signing for Andy Dalton. He's your new quarterback for the Chicago Bears. Him, Tony Gill, Adam Hogue, and their cast of characters over there. They do a great job. Please go support that podcast. Please, that's as much as you support us, support him as well.
I can only imagine what they're thinking about what the Bear direction of this Bears team. I can only imagine what they're thinking right now. I gotta check that out. So enjoy the March Madness games, everybody, and the other sports that are going on right now. For Sid, I'm Lakeena. This is Second City Sports Zoom style, and we'll see you Tuesday.
I'm getting back to the March Madness. I don't know about you, but I'm ready to getting back to taking naps and getting my eat on watching this March Madness. Till next time, holla.